Now that we have understood what is data, we have understood what is a database, what a database is, what is database management system, what is RDBM is. We have seen SQL and its basic commands, introduction to basic commands like DCL, TCL, DQL, yeah, DDL, DML. All these commands are taken care of. Now let me start with the DDL commands. The first DDL command is basically to create a table, right? How to create a table. Now, before we actually start doing it in MySQL, let's have a glimpse of what the syntax will be like. After all, SQL is a programming language. So let me start with the syntax. The first thing obviously we type on the space over there is create table. Create table instructs SQL to start creating a table, be ready to create a table. And then once you type this, you have to then go for the table name, provide the name of the table. Once you provide the name of the table, then you have to move on to opening a parenthesis over here, as you can see. Now this is where you start inputting the details of the column, starting with the column name, right? Once you give the detail of the column, then you have to move on to the next detail of the column, which is data type. You have to define the data type and the number of characters if necessary. Can you see there's a bracket over here? We'll move on to data type soon, right? But data type are generally integer, varchar, or float, or any various other kind of data types. We'll see that in the next session. But you have to define the data type over here, and then in the close parenthesis, if required, you want to limit this to number of characters, you have to give the constraint of the number of characters. This leads us to the next part, which is constraints. The constraints can be, of course, defining the constraints, if any, if it is necessary. For example, you want to make it a primary key, you can put it a primary key. You want to make it a non-null column, that is, you're actually prohibiting that the user, whoever is creating the table or who will be inserting data into the table, will not be able to insert a null value over here. Then you have to put in non-null. All this will be seen in detail, don't worry, right? Now, once you do that, you have to repeat that for the next column. That is, for every row of syntax over here, there is a column which is getting generated. And once you've done that, once you've created all the columns, you need to close this parenthesis over here. So this parenthesis is nothing but the details of all the column. Here we have just given the name of the table. And once we do this, the table gets created. Let's see how in SQL. All right, so as you can see, this is the MySQL. Right, this is my SQL code. Now, what I'll do in order to create a table, the first command that I need to give is create table. And then we have to give the name of the table. Let's say it is employees. Right, now enter parenthesis open. The first one would be to give the name of the first column, which is, let's say, employee ID. And I want it to be an integer. And I do not want it to be more than 20 characters. So I just put in a limit of 20 character, and I want it non-null, right? So now as you can see that this is the name of the column. This is nothing but the data type of the column. And this is the constraint that I'm putting in. Now, do not worry over here. Oh, I'm sorry. This has to be not null. I'm so sorry for this. Right. Now, please do not worry about the error it is throwing, because I've just created a table over here and I'm yet to finish the entire row. Now, let's say I give another column, which is, let's say, the first name, right? This is, or I'll make it like first underscore name, right? And I want it to be a character, right? And let's not give any constraint over here. And let me say that I don't want any null values over here as well, right? So this is my second column. I enter, and similarly I had to put in the details of all the columns. All right, let me do it all in one go. Correct, right? So this is how I've created it. Okay, let me remove this, otherwise it'll get created twice. Right, so these are all the details of the columns that I put in. The name of the column, the data type of the column, unsigned, and these are the constraints over here, not null. As you can see, first name is varchar. I don't want it to be more than 20, right? 20 characters long. Last name again varchar. Don't worry about this varchar, integer. These are nothing but data types. We'll move on to this in the next video. Okay. Now, email, phone number, hire date, job ID, salary, commission, percentage, manager, ID. And once I'm done with this, I'm just assigning that this is my primary key. And once I'm done, once I'm sure that I've created all the columns, I just have to close this and always end any SQL query with colon. And once I do this, and once I run this, Okay, my table gets created. Now here it says the employees table already exists because I've already created that table in my database. But once you do it for the first time in your MySQL, this table will get created and will be reflected over here in the schema. All right. So this is how you create a table in SQL.